Who is UGA football's enforcer? Do they have an enforcer? Let's define that a little bit too. Do they have a leader, the rah-rah leader that's keeping everybody accountable, keeping people in check? And maybe you don't have to have that, right? But they had one in 2022, and they had one in 2021, and guess what? They won that game in both of those seasons. I'm wearing my championship merch right now. They got us an Indy. And look, 2021, it was Nakobe Dean. 2022, it was Nolan Smith. And I am calling them enforcers. This is not necessarily a real thing, right? But I called them the enforcers because they held people accountable. They were rah-rah guys when they needed to be. Nolan, a rah-rah guy anytime he needed him to be. And they produced on the field as well. And they were leaders on the field as well, off and on the field. There's no other way to put it other than the fact that they were enforcers. Does this 2023 team have that? Who is that guy? Because Kirby Smart has talked about the leadership of this year's Georgia Bulldogs team, how much he likes the leadership, how he thinks they've done a good job. I agree. They've got a ton of leaders, right? Carson Beck's a leader, and he has not played that much football for Georgia, right? Javon Bullard's a leader. Cedric Van Pran's leader. Zion Logue's leader. Tate Ratchett's leader. There are all sorts of leaders on this team, and that's a good thing. Who's the enforcer, though, right? Who's the guy that's holding everyone accountable? And if they don't have that, that is, look, that's not my, it's not up to me to determine if they need that. It's up to Kirby, and Kirby is also obviously the enforcer. But I don't know who it is on this 2023 team. Maybe that moment hasn't presented itself yet. Maybe we haven't gotten to that point yet where someone needs to step up. But I want to share just a couple of things about Nakobe. A couple of things. I said Nakobe weird. I just said Nakobe really strangely. That was Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith. I want to share a couple of things about them from the last 2 years. And, talk about this year. Because I think I know who it is. And I want to know what you guys think. Ryan Kelly from Dog Post here. Hey, newsletter, putting it down below. I'm taking what Matt's been saying, and I'm saying, do you want to be a 5-star Georgia fan? You sign up for the newsletter down below so you get that in your inbox every single day. Insider stories, free stories, premium stories, all of that. You name it. You want final feelings in your inbox? You want thoughts from the box in your inbox? All that. You don't have to look for the stories. We're sending them to you. There's my pitch for the free newsletter down below. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not even, I will tease you. I will tease you a little bit and kind of get into some of what I want to say before I tell you who I think it is. Because the thing with Nakobe was, all you had to do right now if you want, after this, pick a game from 2021, right? Pick Arkansas, pick whoever. Go pick a game from the 2021, watch a couple highlights, go to when they're on defense, pause it, and just look who's out on the field. You'll see all sorts of alphas. You'll see celebrity people, right? You'll see Jordan Davis, who there was a freaking Heisman campaign for the guy. And his numbers were nowhere near Heisman level, right? He was a great player. He did not have Heisman numbers, but that's how big of a personality he was. Guess what? He wasn't Georgia's enforcer. Lewis Seen, big-time leader for Georgia that year. Big-time hitter for Georgia that year. Really enforcing people with the shoulder pad. He wasn't the enforcer. In fact, Lewis Seen said it himself. It's Nakobe Dean. He said that in that documentary they did. You remember the one that they put me in? They put me in there for some reason. Just kidding, but I was there. Lewis said, Nakobe is our leader. No hesitation. Nakobe is our leader. You could pick apart moments where that's obvious. And it's sometimes obvious in the press conferences. The verbiage, I believe, is a little bit more similar this year among all the players. I feel like I'm getting the same message. And these press conferences are getting diluted. That's not what this is about. That's my outside complaint that I don't know is ever going to change. It might only get worse. But Nakobe was cool, calm, collected, but would drop the hammer if he needed to, verbally or physically. And you think about the way he directed traffic. I've got two moments that pop to mind immediately, and I could pick out more if I needed to, but I'm going to give you these two about Nakobe. the Florida game in 2021. He's directing traffic before the play, and Anthony Richardson's out there, and he's directing traffic. I believe he directs Lewis Seen, actually, takes his assignment, picks off Anthony Richardson and takes it to the house. He read the play before it even happened and then read it during, and he executed, and that was leadership. That was football IQ and leadership all in one, being able to tell another guy that, look, you go there, I got this. You think about the national championship game with Channing Tindall. I can't quite remember exactly what Channing Tindall didn't do right, but N'Kobe Dean was in his grill. And look, later that game, and not too far later that game, Channing Tindall's out there making big plays in the national championship against Alabama. It was N'Kobe Dean. In 2022, it was obvious. It was Nolan Smith. You had that guy running around talking about how Georgia was going to be. Everyone said we were going to be 7-5. They told us we were going to be 7-5. That's what Nolan Smith was running around telling people. And I don't know if they believed it, and I don't know. And obviously, it's not just that. But Nolan Smith was the rah-rah guy. I hope that was off screen. That was terrible. Excuse me. I'm not editing that out either. They have a rah-rah. Rah-rah Thomas. Do they have a rah-rah guy? Nolan Smith was the rah-rah guy last year. And even when he went out with the pec injury, he was still on the sidelines, being a de facto coach, being a leader. I'm really fighting another sneeze. And Nolan Smith was wearing a Stetson Bennett jersey. He was showing support for his teammates. He was out there. He really was like another coach. If you could see and hear the sidelines, being in practice last season, and the chances I did get to be there when they allowed me to be there, it was obvious. It just was always obvious that it was Nolan. And he produced as well, right? Who knows what he was going to have, but look, he ended up being a first-round pick. And he contributed to 2 national championships. I think it's Cedric Van Pran this year. I think it's Cedric Van Pran, and I teased you guys a long time for that. But if I had to pick who I think the enforcer is, I think it's Cedric Van Pran. And if it's not him, I think it might be Javon Bullard. There are plenty of players on this Georgia Bulldog team that have leadership qualities and that are just straight up leaders, right? But who is that one guy? I think it might be Cedric Van Pran. Not afraid of the big moment. Dude sticks around for this year. He would have been drafted. We're talking about a guy that would be an NFL center right now. That was on the table for him. He's got unfinished business. He wanted to come back to Athens. I'm sitting in Athens right now. He wanted to come back to Athens. And he wanted another one. And he had unfinished business academically. Whatever. Cedric Van Pran had to do what he thought he had to do, which was come back. 2 years in a row, he represented Georgia at SEC Media Days. And as a redshirt sophomore, or as a second-year guy, they let him do that. And he's a consistent captain. The SEC Inside Special Edition, whatever you want to call it. First of all, the SEC documentary crew is all about Georgia this year. I get it. If the three-peat happens, they're going to have all sorts of nice clips because the camera crews are around. The camera crews are around more than they were the last 2 years, and it's big time. And I know one of those guys, and look, we got to see it. They put it on TV. What was happening when Georgia was down 14-3 at halftime to South Carolina? At home against South Carolina. It's not good. Not a good team. Cedric Van Pran, Javon Bullard, those guys they're getting up there. They're speaking to players. Javon Bullard didn't even play that game. I think it's Van Pran. When I was walking through the sidelines against Vanderbilt, and you had to literally, at Georgia, in Sanford Stadium, there is space between the players and where you can walk through back and forth for media. And at Vanderbilt, there was not. So I'm literally, to go back and forth walking, you're walking through the players. I'm bumping shoulders with Tyke Smith and stuff like that. Cedric Van Pran was the rah-rah guy on the sideline on Saturday against Vanderbilt. Bring your own juice was one of the themes for Georgia. They had to, because that was a weird situation. And you had more fans there than Vandy did. The construction, the scoreboard, all of it. Strange situation. Their locker room was a tent. The press conference room was in a trailer, guys. There was no place for me to walk on the sideline. It was Cedric Van Pran who was riling guys up, getting in people's faces, and keeping people accountable. So, if I had to say, I think the enforcer this year is Cedric Van Pran. But do they have an enforcer? Do they need an enforcer? Those are all the questions I have. Newsletters down below. Thanks for sticking with me.